Likutei Torah, Bamidbar, page 30, second column, A's base. Okay, first Alter Rebbe started explaining what does it mean as Kol Advarim Ha'ela. It should have said as Kol Advarim. So he says Ha'ela represents a revelation. Like he says, the first four Svarim were greater, the Moshe Rabbeinu revealed the level of Devarim. Okay, whatever. Then the Alter Rebbe asked the question that the whole Torah Matan Torah given to the Jews is difficult to understand because it's simply they're seemingly the Aseret Dibros. The Ten Commandments were simple things, and yet there's a whole commotion and tumult. And he said, what's the inyan of Matan Torah? That the essence of Hashem is revealed, the essence of every Jew is revealed, and it permeates even the physical world. And that's why it says you have the Sfira Sa'emer, Hachel Cheremesh Pakama. You need to cut down the nature, the koima, the nature of the person, and breaking evil and transforming evil, and that's the avoid of the people down here to be able to receive the Torah. Okay, so he says to make a chol kaima that all the nature of the Jew okay. So he says now in Beis to explain this, it says the Gemara has they said there was a whole discussion going on. Talmud Gadol or Maisa Gadol? What's greater, action or learning? Nimna v'gamru, they made a counting, they came to the conclusion, Gadol Talmud, Shamevi l'idei Maisa, which basically doesn't answer the question. But anyway, here the Alter Rebbe is explaining, because, why is Talmud Gadol? Because it says on the Pasuk, Chol Cheftim le'yishvavah, it says no faith, no desires, no objects, nothing is equal to you, and it says afilu chafetz shemayim, even heavenly objects, even heavenly desires, chafetz, meaning even mitzvahs don't come to the level of Torah. And he says Yerushalmi so that man da mafilu dvad echad min Torah. Even it says over there's an opinion that even to one word of Torah, all the ein kol mitzvahs kedai. Okay. All the mitzvahs together don't even come to one word of Torah. Forget the whole Torah. One word of Torah. Because Rabbi's Parshas Noach, and similar to this Medrash Rabbah Noach, okay. So Ella, so it says like this. In our Gemara, the Gemara says Rama Krod Adodi. The Gemara in our Gemara made cut and asks a question the following. One pasuk says Chochefsem. Nothing compares to Torah, even Chefs Shemayim. Another pasuk says Chol Chafatzecha leYishva, the mashma Chafatzecha v'le'Chefs Shemayim. Another pasuk says that all your chafetzim, your desires, your objects, both things it means. Mitzvahs. So the Gemara says, another pasuk says mitzvahs are greater than Torah. So the Gemara asks the question. One pasuk says Torah is greater than mitzvahs. Another pasuk says mitzvahs are greater than Torah. So which one is it? The Gemara answers, Kam b'mitzvah shev shalah seisa adei achedim. V'kam b'mitzvah she'iev shalah seisa adei achedim. The pasuk that says Torah is greater represents a case when somebody else could do the mitzvah. So the question is, should you stop learning to do the mitzvah? The answer is you don't stop learning, because learning is greater. And the mitzvah is going to get done anyway. But if the mitzvah won't get done by somebody else, then you stop learning Torah.
Rabbi, in the personal mitzvah, if a person has to put on tefillin,
that's what he's talking about. But the bottom line is a mitzvah that could be done through somebody else. You stop the mitzvah and they Talmud Torah. Okay? So the bottom line is, the Gemara says learning Torah is greater than mitzvahs. Even all the mitzvahs to one word of Torah is nothing. Right? Unless if the mitzvah that nobody else could do, so then you do it, the mitzvah.
Was that greater?
So chen ain't a move on, is not understood. Hello, Talmud Torah, Eisek Pirish, Bir a mitzvah. The Torah is explaining how to do a mitzvah. The manual can be greater than the appliance. Here, the whole Torah is explaining how to do a mitzvah, and here you come along and say the Torah is greater, the explanation, the manual is greater than the mitzvah. Okay, so the Velama Yigdol Kechamalus Eisek Bepirish Ubira mitzvah. How could the explanation of the mitzvah be greater mimaisa mitzvah atzma? Greater than the mitzvah to the extent that mevatlim mitzvah. You don't do a mitzvah that somebody else can do to stop, and you don't stop learning. She'ef shall I say there kafarashos truma al derech moshe, like separating truma. Yeah, efshai de shliach. A shliach can do it for you. You don't have to separate truma yourself, right? You learn now from the pasuk by truma gamatem that's why Alter Rebbe is saying truma, because that's the source of a shliach. It's from the psukim of truma. So over there, the bottom line is that it doesn't make sense. Truma, for instance, somebody else could do separating truma, even though separating truma is a mitzvah, but you keep learning and let somebody else do it. But the Torah's explanation of the mitzvah. So it doesn't make sense, l'chayra. How could Torah be greater than the mitzvah when the whole inyan of Torah is explaining the mitzvah? So he says, he said in the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, Im ein chachma ein yira, Im ein yira ein chachma. Right? If there's no chachma, there's no yira. If there's no yira, so he says, Sarchalav and eich la'aschel, what's the chicken, what's the egg? I mean, where do you start? If it's ein chachma ein yira and ein yira ein chachma, so where do you start from? The Yuvan and Yehegdim, the Vayir, to explain like this. So now the Alter Rebbe is going to explain the whole inyan of Limud. Don't forget, some Shvuos Maimer just explains the mile of Limud Torah. So the whole inyan, Alter Rebbe is explaining l'chayra, how could Torah be greater than mitzvahs if Torah is explaining mitzvahs? So he says to understand that we have to understand first Imein Chachma in Yer Chachma. What does it begin? So he said the Yuvin in Yizad, this whole inyan will be understood. The Vayek in a Neidus, no. Shebachayis ve'erin tzavah machayis kol ha'elemis. The chayis of Elokus that gives existence to all the worlds. Bereish kol dargin, from the highest level to the lowest level. There's two levels. Again, there's Mamala kol almin and Seviv kol almin. Yesh beis bechinas. Aleph bechinas Mamala kol almin. One level is Mamala, which is that the chayis mamala means it permeates, it fills the world. That means the chayis of Elokus comes into the world, fills it. How can infinite godliness come into a finite world? So the answer is there's many tzimtzumim. B'derech ilav all of it tzimtzumim rabim, tremendous amount of tzimtzumim. V'yeridas hamadregas mi madrega lemadrega. So it comes down all the way to come into a limited world, right? Umipsad, what?
Yesterday's comment.
Okay. Yesterday, today's, tomorrow's, and next day. There's a whole everything. Psadi achza elokah, meaning k'mei yislabish seichel b'midas. Just like by a person. Seichel comes into midas. Midas comes in machshava. Machshava comes into dibur. Sheyerid v'nishtaush madrega achem madrega until it becomes machshava dibur namaisa. V'dalit chushim and the four senses of riyah, shmi, and so on and so forth. The chayis asher b'me'ach v'lev, and the chayis comes into the mind, and from the lev into the heart, and from the heart it goes to all evadim. Shemekablim lefi mazgam utchunasim. The blood that goes from the heart to the rest of the body is based on the veins. It goes through the veins, so a bigger limb gets bigger veins, smaller veins, whatever it is, but it all goes with a seder. It goes into the moyach into the left, and the left it spreads out all over the body. The yezer dosh v'zer ego, v'chol zeh derech seder v'ishtaushus. That is all in the realm of worlds, limitation. Mamala kol alma. Seichel goes into Midas, Midas and Machshav, Liban Ma'isa, Atzilus goes into Bria, Bria into Yitzir, and so on. There's Mispashit Koyach HaNefesh v'Chayusi. Mamula b'chol haguf, it should be permeating the whole body. Sheivari haguf, Mumula mikoyach v'Chayus should be full. From the Koyach and the Chayus and Nimshach Aleim, Umekablim kolach on each one of the limbs. Gets the females go tchunasi based on its composition or its makeup. Vein zele bechinas is pashtus hakoyches hanefesh. That's only the way that the koyches of the nefesh spread themselves out. Why? Because he says ki hanefesh atzma, the nefesh itself is not divisible. The nefesh itself doesn't have a koyach hariyah compartment, a koyach hashmiyah department. It doesn't have that. They're all one thing. In the nefesh itself, there's no compartments.
You gave a mushroom of a battery.
A battery, good. At least somebody listens. It comes from the level of seichel, chokhmah, shem is plashim ya nefesh. The level of chokhmah, the highest of the koyches, comes from ayin timotzi, comes from this level of the nefesh. Nim shel mi'at mis nefesh atzba. Therefore, it's called nefesh hamaskeles, because the nefesh is seichel. Al shem koyach haseichel shem is plashim imenu. For who the rosh ve'ikol l'chol koyches kom, that's the head of all the koyches. Even though l'chayra there's no seichel compartment or department in the nefesh. The nefesh is one simplistic thing. So he says the seichel was in the nefesh earlier, but it was behelam. It comes from the essence of the nefesh. But the Alter Rebbe is explaining the nefesh itself is, so to speak, bligvul. Through the shtaushut, the tzimtzum, so seichel, which is the highest faculty of the person, comes from the nefesh itself, also through tzimtzumim, and then it goes into the heart, and the heart it spreads out all over the body, and so on. Nevertheless, it's mitzachid in a nefesh mamish. It still becomes one with the nefesh, that the nefesh is called nefesh hamaskeles. So he says, exactly in this mashal of the human being, is in the bechinis ishtaushus achayis me'erin tov baruch la'achis elam is a lavam mamala kolam. That first it comes from the chayis of Hashem, which is not restricted, limited. It becomes yesh mi'ayin, becomes a level of chokhmah, and then it goes into the sfiras, and then it comes into dibor, and then it becomes the creation of the world. It says in the pasuk, Ato Hashem levadecha. You Hashem are alone. Ato sisas shemaim shemayim. Pirush levatcha. What does levatcha mean? Vada yizbarach yochad umyuchad. The lav dislach tzedek yediyah, the lav mikol ina midis klal. You don't have a known level of tzedek. You don't have a known level of midis. Al mikol came nevertheless. Ato sisas shemayim. The same ato, which doesn't have seichel, doesn't have midis, lav mikol ina midis yoklal, is yet what creates ato sisas shemayim. Ato, the essence, creates shemayim. The hainu, his pash, his gedula, saints of baruch ulamayla, mailad and ketz, ulamata and in tachlis. It's only his pash, his bilvad. It's only a manifestation. Bechinas ha'odah viziv, only a ray of the ato. Just like seichel is a ray of the essence of the nefesh, not that the nefesh is composed of seichel, but seichel is a revelation from the essence of the nefesh. The same thing, the whole creation of the world is a revelation of the essence of Hashem. Malchus, Malchus, it's only the level of name, which is only a slight ray. Just like the name of a person that you call his name. See, he turns to you most of the time. Depends which age they are. When you call somebody, they can't turn to you. It says, Hashem turned, Cain Hevel, right? He didn't accept Cain's, but the Hevel he turned to. Just like Vayesha means, he turned. So Hashem turns in the level of creation. Pirish. Melech, we say like this, Yachid, in Baruch Shama, right? Yachid, Chei ha'elamim melech. So you're Yachid, yet you become Chei ha'elamim. If you're Yachid, there is no world. How do you become Chei ha'elamim, the life of the world? So the level of melech. If you're Yachid, you're the only thing that exists. How can you be Chei ha'elamim? Because there's nothing but you. If there's nothing like but you, how can you be the Chayis of something else? There is only you. The answer is because of Melech. Because through Malchus, which is a ray of the Shechina, of Hashem, but the Etzim is that there's really only Yachid. But through the Hishtalshlus of Malchus, Malchuscha, Malchus Kol Elamim, from Malchuscha, which is Malchus the Ein Sof Lifnei HaTzimtzum, higher than Tzimtzum, becomes Malchus Kol Elamim. But that's all through the realm of Hishtalshlus.
So if there was no Hishtalshlus, it was just Yachid.
What?
If it was just Yachid, then Chei ha'elamim didn't make sense.
Correct. So how does it become Chei ha'elamim? The answer is through Melech.
Because since there's Malchus, then there's Elamim.
Right. It's like a question and an answer, so to speak. Yachid, if you're Yachid, how can it be Chei ha'elamim, so to speak? So it's Melech, through the level of Malchus.
You can also see because he created the world, but it's still Yachid.
Is there a world or isn't there a world?
There is a world.
That means there's something besides him. What does the word olam mean? Conceal him. That means God doesn't exist. From our perspective. No.
So you say from his perspective, Yachid and Chei ha'elamim are two different things.
No, from his perspective, it's only Yachid. Through the level of Malchus, Hishtalshlus, concealment, contraction, limitation, so there could be a world that thinks it's a world. In Amshach of his Pashtuzu, can say that Madregas, Mi Madregel Madrega, Bi'elam Atzilis, Il V'Chayel Chat, that there's Elukus in the Kalim and the light of the world one. She'arin Tav Baruch Miyuch Hashem B'Yichud Gomor. Like it's not like the Nefesh Hamaskelis with the Kerech HaSeichel. Val Zen Namer Gadol Hashem U'Mehulo Mi'ed V'Legdulah Say Ein Chayken. This is what we say, Hashem is super great. And to his greatness there's no end. Ulus V'Nasi Ein Misbar. Yeah? That his understanding has no end. That's the world of Atzilus. Then Ba'elam Asrafim Elef Alav V'Avis Yash Misbar L'Gedudav. So then it becomes the level of Bria. Bria is already pirut, but there's a lot of numbers. Umisham yipared li'esmeina misba lekechavim, and then there it goes even to a lower level, from the level of malachim which are ruchnius to kechavim which are gashmius. Umeitzi lashem meitzi mishusi yachad u'shusi rabin, and that's what it says like this: Hameitzi b'misbar tzvaim. Hashem brings out with a number their hosts. Yeah? Meitzi means to carry out. From where? Rishus HaYachid, Rishus HaRabim. So what does it mean Hashem brings out Mizbala? Well, it's a funny expression. Brings out. Where is he bringing it out from? It means he's bringing it out from the world of Achdus, Atzilus. He's bringing it out to the Rishus HaRabim, Bria, where there's Pirud. Ki Rishus HaYachid is Elam Atzilus, Irvechei Echad, and Mishami Parei. And from Atzilus it comes into the world of Pirud. B'ribu Yischalkas Madregas. Me'er Lamaden from level to level, to Bechinas Rishus HaRabim to the Pruda. Mountains of separation, Pirud. That's where it says, Hameitzi b'misbar tzvaim. All the hosts of the heavens, Ruchni, is Gashmi, is all Meitzi. He carries it out from private domain to Rishus HaRabim. Diversity. Nevertheless, it says, from the great strength and might, Ish le'nedad, meaning shalei from the level of bittul. Nevertheless, even though there's all these infinite creations, they don't lack bittul. In kedusha, it's all bittul. Shezel b'chlal sitra de kedusha. Okay, afilu madregas tachteinim. It still has the level of bittul yesh b'chol olam lefi madregas. They still have the level of bittul. The calls that bechinas aleph. This is the first level, mamala kol almin, which is seder ishtalshus. In other words, now the Rebbe is explaining l'cha'era. How could Torah, the manual, be greater than the appliance? Right? How can the Torah, which explains mitzvah, be greater than mitzvahs? And he said, we have to understand it. So he says, okay, to understand over this, there is Mamala Kolam, there's Sevim Kolam, until now he explained Mamala Kolam. Mamala Kolam is the way Elokus comes from the essential level of Elokus as a Ha'ara Ray, like the Seichel comes from the Nefesh. It's revealing the Nefesh. Everything in the world reveals Elokus. But it's a way in the levels. Yishtaushlis. Atzilus is Rishus HaYachid, then it becomes Bria Rishus HaRabim, and you'd see more Rishus HaRabim, and see more Rishus HaRabim, that's all that. So now he says in Gimel, Al-Bachin is HaBeis. But the second level, that's the level of Seviv Kol Almin. Sheseviv V'makiv Kula Almin Bashva Achas Hashovo Mashva. Seviv Kol Almin, though, is everything is the same. There's no Atzilis, there's no Bria, there's no Yitzira, nothing. That level is only in a superficial way, in a concealed way. It doesn't have an internal revelation. The less machshava tvisi beklal. Which is gathered higher than Almin, in the level of Anish Shanisi, I am Hashem that doesn't change, meaning like this. There's a second level of Sefer Kol Almin, which is a revelation of the infinite level of Elokus. Over there, there's no Atzilus, there's no Bria, there's no Yitzira, there's no Asiya, there's only Elokus. It's infinite. I'm sorry. And therefore no creation that is Mechudesh Me'ayin Liyesh Lahachel Gili Erzeh, to be able to handle this revelation that it shouldn't become Batal B'Metzias. This is if a person grasps this infinite level of Elokus, then he couldn't exist as a separate entity. It's completely bought. Mamala Kolam, it comes level according to each level. So this limited Elokus comes into your level so you can handle it. Even though you wouldn't be able to handle, the Gemara says, By the Mazel saw it, that's why they trembled. It says like Daniel with the Anoshim Asharim. There were Chagis Chayim Malachi with Daniel. I'm sorry, Chanani Mishol Azayah. Chanani Mishol Azayah with Daniel. And they saw this revelation, the three of them trembled. Daniel was greater than them, he saw it. Even though even though they didn't see this, what are you trembling about? Mazlaya Chazer. And it says, like the pasuk, Daniel says, I myself saw the vision, Daniel says, because he was greater than them. But a tremendous fear fell upon them. So the Gemara says, why were they scared? Why did they tremble? And the Gemara said, it's like sometimes, you might not understand it, but the Neshama understands it. Pirush Mazlayu, what does it mean? Mazel, He's going to flow water from the pitcher. Shuloshin Amshacha, Umazel, or Amafel, Amamshech Amshacha. Mazel, okay. Yizal means flowing. Mazal is the source of it. The mem is making it happen. What do you mean? What caused them? What's the mazel? The mazel is what's causing this revelation to come down. But that's the neshama itself, which is higher than the body. The whole body, neshama doesn't come into the body. Nefesh, ruach, and neshama does. Chay yichida, chay, which is the level of mazel of the neshama, that doesn't come in the body. Raka orev is pashis mimenu. V'chol atzmi is haneshama. Chayfef is olav momayla, hovers over it from above, and that's called mazel. Mazel means this, like the Rebbe explains like this. Mitzvah comes from tzavsa v'chibur. Mem, in Lashon Kodesh means making it happen, not making, but mem in Lashon makes it happen. So mazal is yizal, the flowing, and mazal makes it flow, which is the essence of the neshama. And he says, okay, we'll leave it here.